So what if I told you that the most valuable, rapidly scaling defense AI startup outside the U.S. isn't actually in Silicon Valley?
I mean, I feel like most people would probably guess, somewhere like London or Tel Aviv, right?
Right. And what if I told you the most advanced cognitive humanoid robots aren't being built in some, ultra-futuristic lab in Tokyo?
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Where are they?
They're actually hiding in plain sight in a European town that's mostly famous for its outlet shopping malls.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely shatters that whole culturally ingrained image we have of innovation, doesn't it?
Totally.
We're so conditioned to expect disruption to come from, a 19-year-old college dropout in a California garage pitching some software app.
Exactly. But the reality of what's happening right now tells a completely different story. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is to unpack this massive stack of research, specifically the 2026 Hurun Germany Unicorn Index.
And it is a dense report.
It really is.
Yeah.
And if you're tracking global markets or investing or just, trying to understand where the next generation of technology is actually being built, you're going to want to pay attention to this because quietly and very methodically, Germany has built 38 unicorns.
Yeah, and just to establish a quick baseline here, a unicorn is a privately held startup valued at over $1 billion.
Right.
So to have 38 of them is staggering. Collectively, these German companies are worth 118.9 billion euros.
Which makes Germany the undisputed #1 in the EU. I mean, they hold more unicorn value than the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Sweden combined.
Yeah, it's not even close anymore.
So today we're going to help you understand how Germany is taking its legendary old-school industrial legacy and basically transforming it into this absolute deep tech, AI, and defense powerhouse. Okay, let's unpack this because to understand how a traditionally, cautious tech ecosystem suddenly started building multi-billion-dollar defense companies, we have to talk about a massive geopolitical shock.
We really do. The single biggest catalyst for the German tech ecosystem didn't come from some venture capital boardroom. It came from geopolitics in February 2022.
Right, the invasion of Ukraine?
Exactly. That triggered what Chancellor Olaf Scholz declared the Zeitenwende, which translates to a historical turning point.
Now, I understand the political side of that, right? The government suddenly unlocked this 100 billion euro special defense fund.
Yeah, a huge influx of cash.
But I want to push back a little here. A government just, throwing money at a problem doesn't automatically create innovative startups.
Oh, absolutely not.
Often it just lines the pockets of those massive, slow-moving legacy defense contractors. So how did a government policy actually spark this insane venture capital growth?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the 100 billion euros was really just the financial signal. The actual mechanism was this profound psychological shift.
What do you mean by psychological?
So for decades, European venture capital flat out refused to touch defense technology. It was taboo.
They wouldn't even look at it.
Not at all. There was no predictable government buyer, and investors were super worried about the optics, right? They didn't want to fund weapons. But the Zeitenwende erased that taboo overnight.
So essentially, geopolitical shock acted like a massive, high-pressure incubator.
Exactly. Developing AI for national defense shifted from being a liability to being the absolute cornerstone of European strategic autonomy. Suddenly, private capital felt safe and even morally justified pouring into this sector.
And I'm looking at the numbers in the source material, and the speed of that capital deployment is just wild. But before we get into the crazy valuations, I see this company called Helsing mentioned everywhere in the report.
Oh yeah, Helsing is the crown jewel here.
What exactly do they do? Because defense AI is a pretty vague buzzword.
It is, yeah. So let's make it concrete. Helsing builds the software brain for the battlefield.
Okay.
Modern warfare generates a chaotic amount of data. You've got drones in the sky, radar systems on the ground, infantry sensors, satellite imagery. It's all just generating noise.
Just a massive flood of data.
Right. So Helsing's AI processes all that disparate sensor data in real time. It fuses it together so a human commander can look at a screen and instantly understand the battlefield environment, identifying threats before they happen.
Oh, wow. So they aren't building the tanks themselves. They're building the operating system that makes all the hardware talk to each other intelligently.
Exactly. And the market's reaction to that operating system is just unprecedented. In 2024, Helsing was valued at 1.6 billion euros.
Okay, a solid unicorn.
But just 2 years later, in this 2026 report, they're valued at an eye-watering 16.6 billion euros.
Wait, a 10x jump in 2 years?
Yeah.
Is that valuation actually justified by their technology, or are we just looking at a defense spending bubble?
No, it's actually justified by the contracts they're winning. I mean, they aren't just doing little pilot programs. They are actively integrating this software into major European defense platforms like the Future Combat Air Systems. They've essentially become Europe's answer to American giants like Palantir or Endural.
That is wild. And it seems like it's opening the floodgates for a totally new type of founder, too. The research mentions a guy named Florian Seibel.
Yes, his trajectory perfectly illustrates this whole shift. Seibel is a serial founder. His first company, Quantum Systems, builds these highly advanced electric drones.
Okay.
And it took them 11 years of patient, methodical grinding to finally reach that billion-dollar unicorn valuation.
Now, 11 years is a lifetime in startup years.
Right, it really is. But then, post-Zeitenwende in 2024, he launches his second company, Stark Defense.
And what do they do?
They focus on autonomous defense systems, and Stark Defense became what the industry calls a zero-year unicorn.
0 year, meaning they were valued at over $1 billion practically at birth.
Literally right out of the gate, yeah.
And the list of who backed them is what really caught my eye in the report. It wasn't just traditional venture capital. It was Sequoia Capital and the NATO Innovation Fund.
Yeah, that's huge.
I mean, when NATO is acting like a Silicon Valley venture capitalist, you know the paradigm is entirely different. They are clearly signaling that they just cannot rely on those 10-year development cycles from legacy contractors anymore.
Precisely. They need agility. They need startup speed innovation to maintain security.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because this agility, this fusion of hardware and software, it's actually bleeding out of the defense sector and directly into Germany's traditional economic engine, which is manufacturing.
Yes.
But they aren't building chat apps. They're building what the report calls physical AI.
That is a crucial distinction for anyone trying to understand the European tech landscape right now.
How so?
Well, when we think of American AI, we naturally think of software, right? Like large language models living in the cloud, generating text or images.
Yeah, ChatGPT, Midjourney, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But Germany is taking AI and embedding it into machines that move, grip, and interact with the physical world.
The prime example in the sources is this company called Nuri Robotics, which is currently valued at 6.4 billion euros.
Yeah, they're incredible.
And they are building cognitive humanoid robots. But before we get to the massive scale of what they're doing, can you explain what a cognitive robot actually does on a factory floor? Because my mental image is just, a giant dumb metal arm welding a car door.
That's the perfect contrast, actually. The traditional robotic arm you're picturing is basically blind and deaf. It just repeats the exact same programmed motion 1,000 times a day.
Right.
If a human accidentally steps in its path, it will just hit them. It has no idea they're there. A cognitive robot, like the ones Nuri builds, has sensors, cameras, and AI processing on board. It actually perceives its environment.
So if I walk onto the assembly line and drop a wrench, what happens?
The robot sees you, it stops safely. It might even recognize that you dropped the wrench, pick it up, and hand it back to you.
Are you serious?
Yeah. It learns from its environment and works collaboratively alongside humans in factories or even in hospitals, rather than being locked inside some safety cage.
That is incredible, and they're scaling this up massively. The report notes they have an order book approaching 1 billion euros, and they're building 6,000 of these robots this year alone.
Yeah, the volume is massive.
But here is the detail that really messes with my head. The U of Robotics is headquartered in Metzingen.
Oh, yeah. A town of roughly 22,000 people.
Yes. It's literally famous for being the historic home of Hugo Boss and having a bunch of outlet stores.
It's very picturesque, yeah.
So how on earth does a small town of 22,000 people compete with San Francisco or Shenzhen for the future of artificial intelligence? I mean, it sounds like they're taking a Silicon Valley brain and just dropping it into a Stuttgart manufacturing chassis. But can that really compete?
It absolutely can, because that small town sits right in the heart of Baden-Württemberg, which is Germany's historic industrial engine. This is their unique structural moat. Silicon Valley has an endless supply of brilliant software developers, sure, but Germany has a multi-generational talent pool of mechanical engineers, automation specialists, and industrial craftsmen. They have the people who actually know how to bend metal and build the physical world at scale.
Gotcha. So that physical expertise is incredibly hard to replicate, even with all the venture capital in the world.
Exactly. Now, that doesn't mean Germany is completely ignoring software, by the way. You have companies like Black Forest Labs in Freiburg valued at 3 billion euros.
Oh, right. They prove Europe is absolutely still in the generative AI race. Weren't they founded by the exact same team that created Stable Diffusion?
They were, yeah.
And the report also highlights N8N in Berlin, valued at 4.8 billion euros.
Yeah.
They do workflow automation, backed by giants like OpenAI, Microsoft, and Jeff Bezos. But again, for the listener, let's ground this. What does workflow automation actually mean for a business?
Think of it as a digital nervous system for a company. Let's say a customer sends you an email with a really complex invoice. Normally, a human has to read it, download the attachment, open the accounting software, manually type in the numbers, and then send a message to the sales team on Slack.
Right, highly manual, super tedious.
Right. So NEN builds the platform that connects all those different software APIs together. The AI reads the email, extracts the data, logs it in your accounting system, and notifies the team all instantly without a human ever touching a keyboard.
Okay, that makes total sense. So they definitely have software wins too.
Yeah.
But going through this unicorn list, something really stands out to me regarding the timeline.
What's that?
Well, you mentioned the Silicon Valley model earlier, grow fast, break things, achieve $1 billion valuation in a couple of years.
Yeah, hypergrowth.
But the German deep tech model seems painfully slow by comparison. Look at CM Blue Energy. The report lists them as a lithium-free battery unicorn, but it says they spent 10 full years in development before they even hit the major venture capital circuit.
Yeah, that is the defining characteristic of the German deep tech ecosystem. Extreme patience. They don't rush. CM Blue Energy spent a decade developing their organic solid flow battery technology.
Wait, before we move on, what is a solid flow battery and why does it even matter that it's lithium-free?
So traditional lithium-ion batteries, like the ones in your phone or an electric car, they store energy in solid materials. They're great for small spaces, but they rely on rare earth metals that are, frankly, environmentally destructive to mine.
And mostly controlled by foreign supply chains, right?
Exactly. And they carry a risk of catching fire. But a flow battery stores energy in liquid electrolytes held in massive external tanks.
So it's essentially just pumping charged liquid back and forth.
Precisely. And because it's liquid, if you want to store more energy, you just build bigger tanks. It makes them incredibly safe, fully recyclable, and perfect for grid-scale energy storage.
Like holding solar power from the day to use at night.
Yes. But perfecting that liquid chemistry took 10 years of quiet, heads-down R&D.
10 years of research without massive venture capital hype. You just don't see that often in the US.
You don't, because these companies rely heavily on foundational scientific breakthroughs incubated inside world-class, publicly funded research institutions. Another great example from the sources is Proxima Fusion.
Oh, the energy company.
Yeah, they spun directly out of the Max Planck Institute to build stellarator fusion reactors.
Okay, I have to stop you again. We hear a lot about nuclear fusion, the whole idea of creating a star in a box for limitless clean energy. But usually, we hear about tokamaks. What on earth is a stellarator?
It's fascinating. A tokamak is a fusion reactor shaped like a perfect, symmetrical donut, and it uses magnetic fields to contain incredibly hot plasma, but the plasma often becomes unstable.
Okay.
A stellarator is also a donut, but it's physically twisted and warped. The magnetic coils are incredibly complex, resembling like a crushed pretzel.
Why build something so complex? That sounds impossible to manufacture.
Because that twisted magnetic field holds the plasma much more stably. It's much harder to engineer and manufacture, which is exactly why it requires that German precision engineering we talked about. But if you can build it, it promises a much more reliable path to continuous fusion energy.
So again, they are leveraging their specific ability to build incredibly complex physical hardware. But it makes complete sense that it takes a decade to build a stellarator or a lithium-fused battery.
Yeah.
You can't just build that kind of deep tech in your college dorm room.
No, absolutely not.
You need serious academic backing and, massive lab space, which completely changes the profile of who is actually starting these companies, doesn't it?
Dramatically. The demographic data in the Hurun Index paints a very specific picture. The average German unicorn founder is 34 years old when they start their company.
So they aren't kids.
No, not at all. They're deeply educated educated, very often holding PhDs in physics or engineering. They spend years in academia or they grind in the industry, mastering their craft before they ever decide to found a startup.
But the sources revealed a really weird paradox about their industry backgrounds.
Oh, about the legacy giants.
Yeah. Germany is famous globally for these massive engineering titans, BMW, Mercedes, Siemens, Bosch. You would logically think the founders of these physical AI and robotics unicorns would be defectors who got frustrated with the slow pace of those companies.
Right.
But the report points out that exactly 0 of the roughly 95 founders of these 38 unicorns came from the traditional auto or engineering giants. 0.
It is a glaring statistic. I mean, the technical talent is clearly sitting inside those legacy companies, but it seems to never leave to start new ventures.
So where are they coming from?
Instead, these unicorn founders are coming straight out of research universities like the Technical University of Munich TUM, or consultancies like McKinsey, or early-stage incubators like Rocket Internet.
Wow.
So the old economy completely dominates the German stock index, but the new economy is being forged entirely outside of those walls.
That's fascinating. But if we're looking at the founder data, there is a much more massive, glaring flaw that we have to talk about. Out of those 95 founders, well, actually out of all of them, less than 5% are women.
Yeah, it's abysmal.
In fact, Sofia Nunes, the co-founder of the banking platform Mambu, is the only confirmed female co-founder on the entire current list of 38 companies.
This raises an important question about structural capital allocation. The broader market research is incredibly consistent on this point. Diverse founder teams build more resilient companies, they identify broader market needs that homogenous teams miss, and ultimately, they deliver higher financial returns.
An insane economic waste. Like, let me try an analogy here. It's like Germany is building this state-of-the-art high-tech manufacturing plant, but they are deliberately locking the front doors to 50% of the top engineers in the country. Your entire assembly line is fundamentally bottlenecked from day one.
That's exactly what is happening, and the investors and founders cited in the research make a crucial point. This is not a lack of ambition among female founders in Germany. It is a pipeline problem and a deeply entrenched capital allocation problem. Structural hurdles from, inflexible childcare infrastructure to the unconscious biases in how traditional venture capital is deployed, they're keeping that door locked.
And the cost of that is staggering. I mean, they're playing this incredible long game with deep tech, but they are leaving massive amounts of money on the table.
They are. The report estimates that if Germany could just fix this structural gender gap and bring female participation up to parity, it could immediately increase Germany's overall unicorn count by 20 to 30%.
That is literally tens of billions of euros in value just left sitting on the table because of a broken pipeline.
Yep.
But okay, let's zoom out a bit. Let's say a startup figures out the tech. They get the talent, they secure the patents for their Stellarator or their cognitive robot. Building a great company methodically is one thing. Keeping it inside the country when it becomes a global giant seems to be a totally different problem.
And this is where the German ecosystem faces its most dangerous structural bottleneck. The report refers to it as the scale-up trap.
Right, because the sources detail what they call the need for a second side inventive. The first one fixed the mindset around defense and early-stage tech.
Exactly.
But the second one needs to fix the capital markets. What exactly happens when these deep tech companies graduate from early R&D and need to raise their, Series C, D, or E funding rounds?
They hit a wall of domestic capital because building physical AI and fusion reactors is incredibly capital intensive.
Right.
The research shows that in these late stage funding rounds, there is under 15% domestic German involvement. So when a company proves their technology works and suddenly needs 200 or 500 million euros to scale globally, the German venture funds simply do not have the balance sheets to write the check.
So Germany is basically acting as a world-class minor league team. They draft the brilliant minds, they train them up at these amazing universities like TUM, they fund the risky, decade-long early R&D, and then the American or British major leagues just swoop in and buy them.
The Americans, mostly, yeah. The vast majority of that late-stage scale-up capital is coming from U.S. giants, Sequoia, Lightspeed, General Catalyst. And while that capital is absolutely vital for these German startups to survive, it comes with heavy American expectations.
Because capital isn't neutral.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, exactly. American venture funds naturally prioritize American markets. They often push these German startups to adopt U.S. governance structures. But most importantly, when it comes time for an IPO, an initial public offering, they push them to list in New York, not Frankfurt.
And BioNTech is the perfect example of this, right? The source material grades the historical tech alumni of Germany. And BioNTech is literally graded as the 1.0 student, like the absolute valedictorian.
Absolutely.
They use German research to develop the mRNA COVID vaccine. They saved millions of lives globally, and they reached a valuation of over $100 billion at their peak. But they aren't listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. They went to the NASDAQ. Why?
Because of economic gravity. When you list on the NASDAQ, you get access to deeper pools of liquidity. You get analyst coverage from people who deeply understand biotech and deep tech rather than, traditional automotive analysts.
Makes sense.
But the tragic result for Germany is that their own pension funds and their everyday retail investors completely miss out on the financial upside of the most successful companies built in their own backyard.
And it's not just the companies leaving. It's the actual human brain drain. The report calls out Peter Thiel, who co-founded Palantir, Andreas von Bechtelheim, who co-founded Sun Microsystems and Arista Networks, and Tobias Lütke, who built Shopify.
Yes.
All born in Germany. All educated there, all left to build their empires elsewhere. And the companies they built abroad are collectively worth over $700 billion.
That is more than double the value of all 38 current German unicorns combined, just lost to the US and Canada. To counteract this, the German government has recently launched the WIN initiative.
What does that do?
It aims to mobilize 12 billion euros from domestic pension funds and insurers by 2030 to inject directly into late-stage venture capital.
Which is a solid start, sure, but 12 billion euros over a few years feels like a drop in the bucket when you're competing with the multi-trillion-dollar depth of Wall Street.
It will require a fundamental structural overhaul of the Frankfurt Stock Exchange to make it genuinely attractive for high-growth tech companies. Because if they can't unlock that domestic institutional capital, Germany will just continue doing all the hard, patient work of deep tech incubation, only to export the financial rewards across the Atlantic.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Well, whether you are an investor looking to allocate capital, a tech enthusiast watching the AI race, or just someone fascinated by how global power dynamics are shifting, you have to update your mental model.
Definitely.
You can no longer look at Europe and Germany specifically as some sleepy, heavily regulated secondary player in the tech race.
The engineering foundations are simply too strong. They are taking their century-old legacy of precision manufacturing and applying it to the most critical technologies of the next 50 years. Defense autonomy, physical robotics, and sustainable energy grids.
They are forging a completely different path than Silicon Valley. It's not about optimizing ad clicks or, building photo sharing apps. It's about manipulating atoms, building infrastructure, and ensuring strategic security. It's basically 118.9 billion euros of proof that methodical, deep tech patience actually pays off.
But the tension we just discussed remains the defining challenge. Building the foundational technology is only half the battle. Capturing and retaining the economic value is the other.
And that brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with. The Hurun report predicts that, based on the current pipeline, Germany is on track to hit 100 unicorns by 2032. The talent is clearly there. But look at what just happened to EG a massive German fitness tech unicorn that was recently absorbed in a merger with an American parent company.
Right.
If Germany successfully builds the physical AI that runs future factories, if they build the autonomous defense networks that protect Europe,
Right.
and if they invent the lithium-free green energy grids of the future, will they actually own them when they reach maturity?
Yeah.
Or, without that massive overhaul in their capital markets, is this incredibly methodical, highly educated ecosystem destined to become the ultimate globally outsourced R&D lab for American tech giants? It's a multi-billion-dollar question. Think about it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.